So when someone says, no, we're not sure we want to spend any money right now, I go, it's a little late for that, not to be disrespectful, but you're spending a lot more than you realize, and here's the reason. You're not holding out. You're not waiting for something better. It's costing me $840 a year in utility costs. It's also costing me $450 a year to keep it running. It's also going to cost me $1,800 more to buy it next year, which means that if I combine those numbers, I am paying $3,090 a year to simply preserve what I've got on an annual basis, even though it's looming over me and I'm going to have to face the music eventually.
Where I'd like to begin is an average home comfort system. It's $30,000. And we want to keep that number from the client.
It's not that I have to be elusive necessarily or deceptive or cause them to, if someone asks me, what's this going to cost? I may give them a wide range, and for reasons I'll explain another time, I'll start with the highest number that's possible and then work my way back to what the minimum might be, but ask them not to hold me to it. This is if they're forcing it on me before I've had a chance to thoroughly investigate it.
Can we go into a role play real quick?
Sure.
How much do one of these cost?
Yeah, just don't hold me to it because I got to look at some stuff still, but just as a ballpark, I'd say okay. 38,000, something like that is kind of the starting point for the very, highest end equipment, right? If you're looking for all the bells and whistles. The other stuff's going to go for virtually half as much. And that's without getting into the realm of something you wouldn't want, like we described earlier. But if you still want bang for the buck, usually the low 20s to the high teens, something like that.
Is that where you want to leave it with me?
Well, I already know this. This is out of role play, but the idea is if I don't bring it up, it's going to come up at some point. I'd rather have that conversation up front, because if I wait until here's my findings, you're going to be like, wow, I'm mind blown. You never liked the numbers I said. You're not happy. If I'd said, what do you think it's going to cost? And you were crazy enough to answer in some weird, you might say something like, oh, I don't know, it's not going to be cheap. These things probably cost $4,000. I have to go, okay, time for a reality check, right? And I need to have that conversation sooner. It's better that you have another hour or two to come to grips with reality, to absorb what we've talked about before I tell you, all right, here's the grand finale. It's going to be $34,000. Than to just have you hear that for the first time with no context, no background, no understanding, and hope that you see it the way I do. It's not even fair to you.
We're going to get this client, Gavin, again, on 7.99%, 180-month financing.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
With a 0.96 payment factor.
Yeah. That's the example we'll use. And
is there anything else that I've left out that's anything other? Those are the givens, right?
I would say that
30 grand.
There's two approaches we can take. It depends on the person in front of you. One of them might be a person who's opposed to financing, even if it costs him nothing, just on principle. So I want to make sure we deal with those guys too. And they're actually, I'd say, maybe the easier ones to deal with, maybe not. But we'll start with them and we'll finish with the other variety, because that's just simply the order that I have this sequenced in. But it's not wrong to do it out of that order. I'm just saying.
Explain this to us. I got on the left-hand side the old air conditioner. On the right-hand side, the new air conditioner. Start from the top. I love all the red lines. I love it.
So the red lines are lines that are there for our clarification, since I'm teaching this. They're not things that would actually be there if I was sitting down with a homeowner, because I would simply explain as I went what I'm doing, and I could maybe mark it up as I go. But I don't want to overcomplicate this, and you might look at it and say, yeah, you already did that, Gavin. We're about there. So we're on thin ice. I'll just say that much. We're going to look at the left column. This is their old equipment. On the right-hand column, the new one, I split it into two columns just to show how I would differentiate multiple systems being quoted at the same time. But to keep things simple, I just did two here. Anyway, the math is the same on both sides. This is essentially a slow motion spreadsheet. I have 4 tons of air before and after in this scenario. Okay, we'll assume I've done a manual J to confirm that it's sized correctly. And we're going to pretend that in this theoretical environment, we don't have any other problems. I'm not suffocating a machine with undersized ductwork or something like that. Okay. A 4-ton air conditioner is a 48,000 BTU air conditioner. They're synonymous. We multiply by 12,000. It's 12,000 BTUs per ton. And so on my next line down, I just simply convert from 4 tons to 48,000 BTUs. Nothing's changing on either side of the equation. The next line is the SEER rating. There are some formulas to determine how quickly they degrade, but they're always at best a guess. If you're not a tech who can actually go through and measure it, you're going to have to make an educated guess. And so what I do is, instead of making just an educated guess, I should rephrase it and say, I don't want an educated guess. I want a conservative guess. An educated guess tells me that after, say, 15 or 20 years of operation, in a place like Phoenix, where it wasn't expected to last that long in the first place, if we actually put amp clamps on all the motors and test it and everything, we might say, well, this thing's operating at 6 SEER, sometimes a little less, right? We're going to be conservative, though, and just say, even though it might be 5 or 6 or 7, let's just call it an 8, because I don't really know. And I just don't know. BTUs divided by SEER, 8 with a question mark, because again, I just don't know, equals watts. Our next line down, 6,000 watts. I convert this on the same line to kilowatts by just simply shifting the decimal 3 places. Why? Because kilowatts are the language spoken by utility companies, not single watts. The utility companies, and I already know that depending where you guys live, you'll be jealous. This 12 cents a kilowatt hour is a realistic average, even sometimes out here in the summertime in Phoenix. I know it's getting higher, but generally speaking, that's still possible. I know some of you guys are probably twice that. So
3 times times that in California.
Yeah, there you go. It's good to be from California. From it. But
from
at 12 cents a kilowatt hour, if I'm burning 6 of those, I just simply multiply it and I go, well, let's see, 6 times 0.12 is 0.72. It's costing me 72 cents an hour. And finally, we've arrived at plain English, the thing the customer was hoping for.
Yeah.
72 cents an hour cools your home right now.
Okay, so we're at 72 cents. Now we're going times 2,000.
Yep. That's how many hours period they run it.
Left-hand column.
Which means that $1,440 a year of their electric bill is allocated towards air conditioning, approximately. If we shift right, you'll see that a 15 SEER system does the same job for $760 a year. A 19 SEER system would do the same job for $600 a year.
So I see 1440 minus 760, which is for the 15 SEER. That's the $630 difference, right?
Yeah.
I see the 1440 minus, is that 600?
Yeah.
Gives me the 840. Okay. So you've got it highlighted where one of them, they're making $630 of annual overpayment. And the other one, it's $840 of annual overpayment.
Yeah, it's
probably important to put the overpayment word there.
It is.
And use it in that case.
It's often exchanged for the word savings, but here's the reality. Both of those words describe it accurately. Everyone knows what you mean. The problem is, a savings is something you kind of have to earn a little bit. You're on the wrong side of the coin. If you are currently wasting money, the only way you can call it a savings is to stop bleeding. You've got to replace the system to call it a savings. Right now, what you're doing is you're overpaying. You're running a machine that's costing you conservatively $680 a year more than it needs to, or $840 a year more than it needs to. So you're overpaying. There is a difference to when someone says to you, man, Kevin, real optimistically, you could save $680 a year. Just think what you could spend it on. Versus if I say, Kevin, you guys are currently wasting $680 a year to keep this running. Mm-hmm. The impact it has is different. It's better.
So let's get through this. Let's go to page 2.
Got it.
Andrew, if we could. Okay.
The only thing that carries over here from page 1 was the $840 a year overpayment. That's the very top. So in this example we're going to use, because you said 30 grand, we're going to assume that's the higher SEER rating system. I think I said 19. I'm going to make a list here, and I would do this right in front of the homeowner. $840 a year is your overpayment. That's not the only thing it's costing you to preserve or continue using an old air conditioner, right? It also costs $450 a year on average to repair. Now, sometimes we know, and I'll say this to the homeowner, you'll get 2 or 3 or 4 years consecutively without a breakdown, which is great. When it hits, say it's $2,000. This is meant to be an average, right? I make a point of pointing this out to them because I don't want them to inwardly say, it doesn't cost me $450 a year. He's making things up. No, I'm not. It actually does. That's conservative. And I'm actually very aware of how those numbers were achieved. It's conservative. It does not account for things you pay for in your air conditioner that you might have wanted but didn't actually need. For example, air quality control, accessories, right? Things, I'm talking about the bare minimum the components that are necessary to keep it functioning and nothing more. And when I strip that out of it, the way we've looked at it, the answer is conservatively $450 a year.
Okay, so back in roll, Gavin. You're now talking about 6% inflation,
Yeah.
which it looks like for a $30,000 piece of equipment is $1,800 a year. That this equipment's going to be in additional cost the following year.
We've seen some pretty steep inclines in the last few years, but generally speaking, 6%.
Talk about conservative. Talk about conservative.
Yeah, no,
that's
it really
another
is.
Conservative one right there.
Well, I mean, if you look at the
Yes.
inflation rate in general, I think Bureau of Labor Statistics, pegs it somewhere around 4%, but there's an asterisk and they say it doesn't include energy or food. So it's like, well, the only way that really applies to me is if I don't turn on a light switch, drive a car, or eat. You're not holding out. You're not waiting for something better. The same machine is going to cost you $1,800 more than it would have, which means that if I'm holding on to what I've got, I'm delaying the inevitable. It's costing me $840 a year in utility costs to do that. It's also costing me $450 a year to keep it running in average repair. It's also going to cost me $1,800 more to buy it next year, which means that if I combine those numbers, I am paying $3,090 a year to simply preserve what I've got on an annual basis, even though it's looming over me and I'm going to have to face the music eventually. So when someone says, no, we're not sure we want to spend any money right now, I go, you're a little late for that, not to be disrespectful, but you're spending a lot more than you realize, and here's the reason.
Yeah, what it takes if I were to hold on to this thing, I'm paying $3,090 each year per se.
If you're a cash buyer and you put $30,000 into this, divide that $30,000 over the $3,090 you're wasting currently to delay the inevitable. And the result is 9.7. That's the number of years it'll take for you to return on that investment.
Okay, let's flip to page 3. This is the moment of truth. The final page we'll cover. Okay, here we go.
So instead of talking to the cash buyer, now we're talking to someone who says, I really want to use some payment plans because it's just too big of a pill for me to swallow at once. And I'm actually not convinced I can. I'm just going to say in this scenario, someone might say, I can't even swing $300 a month. It's just not in the budget right now. Well, I'm going to move 2 lines from the previous page onto this one. I'm going to exclude the inflation one because that comes up later, but here's what applies, and I'll explain it in a minute. The overpayment of $840 a year, we're going to look at, instead of a yearly problem, it's a monthly problem. And eventually we could break it down to the daily. But $840 a year is equivalent to $70 a month. You just divide it by 12. I know that the majority of that will accumulate in the summer months. So it's really not 70 a month even, but on average, that's what it is.
Yep.
The average annual repair cost, $450, can also be divided by 12, and you go, well, that's $37.50 a month. If we combine that with our $70 a month, we say, well, our monthly cost of preservation is $107.50. You guys can go to, again, look at this if you need to see how I come up with those numbers. But if I've got a $30,000 unit and I can finance it with a payment factor of, in just this example, there's 100 ways to go about this, guys, 0.96%. I had to choose one. Okay. That means my payment is $288 a month for a guy who said, no, I can't swing 300 or even close to, I got to keep it under 200. Oh, well, I've got good news, sir. It's not going to feel like 288, even though I acknowledge that's what you're spending, because you are now stopping the bleeding of $107 a month every month, which means the difference between what you spend each month, $288, and what you're no longer spending each month, $107, leaves you with a net output or net investment of $180 and change. You're under your 200. And if you want to get really crazy about it, that's $6 a day.
I mean, you could tell the client, this is what it's going to cost you to get involved in this new high efficiency first, state of the art HVAC system for as low as $6 a day.
That's right.
So really, you can get it for a cup of coffee, just a little more than a cup of coffee.
That's it. That's reality.
And that is what Tom Hopkins, one of the greatest sales trainers of all time, used to call the reduction to the ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Make it so reduced that it is almost ridiculous. $6 a day, a cup of coffee, well, then it becomes affordable. So what was expensive in the mind of a client, through getting their monthly payment, subtracting off their utility overpayment, and their repair overpayment. You've now brought it all the way down to this net investment, which makes it affordable at $6 a day.
Yeah, done. Yeah.